And the police, why don't they open their eyes to what the public relations are? They've got to stop this stuff.
Evangelical leader and host of the long-running 700 Club on the Christian Broadcasting Network, Pat Robertson, slammed police over recent events, including what happened to Daunte Wright. Now, if you know anything at all about Pat Robertson, incredibly conservative, being an evangelical leader should clue you into that. But also, he's someone that occasionally differs from the conservative norm on issues, and this is one of those times. So I'm going to play this clip for you. He's going to start off by discussing Kim Potter, the officer that shot Daunte Wright, and casting doubt on the idea that she confused a taser for a gun.
And I have here in front of me that this is not the real thing. It's a plastic, but this is, in our police department, we use the Sig Sauer. Others use the Glock, but it looks something like this, and it feels like this. This is as I say, is a plastic weapon. This, they don't even make tasers any longer black. This is a taser. Now, Terry, I know cross and all that rest of it, but can you feel this one, and then feel this one, and tell me you couldn't tell the difference?
This is lighter.
Of course it's lighter. We don't have the battery in that, because if we did, we...
Also, I want to say, you know, I think a lot of people are thinking, like I was, that both the gun and the taser would be put on your dominant side, but it's not that way.
Yeah, but they have to cross where they have them on different.
So you actually have to reach across yourself,
but
to
you
get
feel
the
the difference. I mean,
it's definitely
there's just no
discernible
comparison. As I say, they're not making tasers in this yellow color anymore. They're making in black. They're making them yellow. Now, how she made the difference was she shot that poor guy to death, saying, "This is what I thought. I thought was my taser." And if you can't tell the difference in the feel of those things, it's crazy. Anyhow, she deserves. But I am pro-police, folks. I think we need the police. We need their servants, and they do a good job. But if they don't stop this onslaught, they cannot do this. You know, the police in Virginia picked up a lieutenant in the Army and began to give him trouble. And our state police are highly trained. But why they don't stop this? And this thing is going on in Minnesota, but the Derek Chauvin, I mean, they ought to put him under the jail. He has caused so much trouble by kneeling on the death of George Floyd. It's just, I mean, on his neck. It's just terrible what's happening. And the police, why don't they open their eyes to what the public relations are? They've got to stop this stuff.
Maybe they need more training. Consistent training. I don't mean training.
The problem is
things, but
you've got to pay them more. We don't have the finest in the police department. They're low-paid people, Terry. They don't get adequate. It's not a question of training. It's a question of hiring a more superior workforce, and we aren't doing it. But we need police. We need them, and we need to honor them, and I'm all for it. But at the same time, we cannot have a bunch of clowns running around who are underpaid and who really are not the best and brightest. We've got to have the best in there. Ephraim?
Can't have a bunch of clowns running around. I completely agree. Now, there are parts of this that I will get to, like paying them more, that I think are ideas worth discussing, but in a way that makes sense. I'll get to that in a minute. But first here, look, Pat Robertson is not your typical conservative commentator. He is someone that actually has moments like this where he is an independent thinker, where he differs from the norm. And I think it's largely because he is not simply operating by being a tool of, large billionaire backers. He's out there saying what he thinks, whether it's wrong or not. Often it's wrong, but in this case, it's not. So he has moments like this where he differs from the norm. And another example of that was when he said this about Donald Trump: "You just don't do that, Mr. President." Televangelist Pat Robertson condemns Trump's law and order response to protests. So he's had several moments like this where he's come out against things Trump has said, or differed from the conservative view on a policy or an idea. And this is another one of those times. Now, let's get to the "we need to pay them more" idea. Because, a lot of this wasn't necessarily slamming the cops. He's still very in support of the cops, still wants them to be armed, and wants to pay them more. Now, the way I view this is you can pay them more if you defund them. Meaning, I know that sounds like it doesn't make any sense, but if you move a lot of their responsibilities away into other areas, like mental health calls go to mental health care professionals, you begin to whittle down the responsibilities that police actually have down to, say, just violent crime. And those cops that do exist that work in that area, I think, should be paid well. You don't want someone responding to violent crime who doesn't know what they're doing. Essentially, I mean, in general, you don't want people armed who don't know what they're doing. So I think cops can be paid more if you whittle down their numbers to a select few who actually have a focused responsibility. But the idea of, paying them more for the job they're doing right now is obviously completely insane. But I do think Pat Robertson has a point here, where if you have a higher standard of what is acceptable as a policeman or policewoman, then it makes total sense that you would pay those individuals more. But of course, they have more would be required of them to actually become cops. Ultimately here, though, it's just incredible to see moments like this from Pat Robertson, who is so wrong so often, but once in a while has a moment like this.